get going. Is that cool?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome to TPH Live. If you get a chance to stick around, we're going to go a little bit long today because I have an important announcement at the end I want to make. So if you get a chance to stick around, that's great. Sorry, there's going to be a little background noise because my cat has discovered a yo-yo and is dragging it around on the wood floors. So hopefully he'll forget the yo-yos. Nope.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, a little levity on at a time when we can all use it. Our teacher today is the Reverend Angel Kyodo Williams, who is an author. In fact, I have her book right here, which she co-authored. One of her books is called Radical Dharma, and she's in the Bay Area, and she's a meditation teacher. What else? What else in your bio have I missed? You've done. You're the founder of an organization called Transformative Change. Anything else on your bio that I should have included it here?
Well, I'm also now the senior advisor to Mindful, and that's fantastic. We're bringing all of our work online now, so it's really taking what we're all doing right now here, which is bringing the best of mindfulness, and I like to say a mindfulness 3.0 that goes beyond the kind of false dichotomy between the traditional and the modern, and bringing it into a space in which more people can access these profound teachings in ways that are relevant to right now.
Just a shout out to Mindful, MNDFL. It started as a chain of meditation drop-in centers. You can go do meditation in person. Obviously not doable right now, but as you said, moving online. Let me just ask, we talked about this before we came on camera here, but let me just ask again, we're at a really difficult moment in history. How are you?
Yeah, I am good. One of the things that has been part of my realization through time of, just who I am, like what it means to be, a Black woman, a queer woman, and a Dharma teacher, and a Zen priest, like in this moment, is that I have been trained and made for these times. And so for me, this is the calling in of all of the work that I've been doing, the seeds that I've been planting, is to meet this moment and to meet it hopefully with grace and a willingness to show up for people. As we were talking off camera, like my front line is to create space for people that are engaged in righteous protest, whether they're out in the streets or whether they're doing it from their, the space of Instagram or YouTube or so on, to help and resource those people and remind them that they have resources to tap into, that this difficulty is necessary for significant change, and that's where we are right now.
So you wanted to, well, first of all, thank you for doing that work. You wanted to talk about today the idea of meeting discomfort by smiling at it. Can you hold forth a little bit on how that might work?
Yeah, in my work with Radical Dharma, one of the things that we do is we take meditation and mindfulness practice to the kind of expanded level of being embodied and what it means to be embodied. And so we talk a lot about the fact that, and this is apropos for this time, is that race is something that's not just a mind construct. It's actually something that lives in and on bodies, that our bodies are racialized. And so to do a mindfulness practice or anything else that doesn't take into account. So we hear a lot in meditation, it's mindfulness, right? We hear a lot about our mind and not quite as much about bodies. And so the invitation is to really work with the whole body and the whole field of the body and all of the motions and feelings and memories, memories of muscle memory and genetic memory that are inside and live in our bodies. So when we experience discomfort and difficulty in the face of challenge, it's actually a bodily discomfort. We actually feel that discomfort, and that discomfort can cause us to, go into the well-known fight, flight, freeze, or appease. And if we don't have practices that, first of all, enable us to recognize that that's where we've gone, that we've checked out, that we're disappearing on ourselves, that we're falling into distraction as a means of avoiding the experience of the discomfort of the challenge that we're meeting. If we're not able to recognize it, then we can't do anything about it. And then second of all, we need practices that help us to, shift our state around that, and to be able to tap into something, tap into a resource so that whatever it is that is difficult, that is overwhelming us, we can give ourselves access to resources so that we don't become the overwhelm, because that's when it becomes, we can meet overwhelm, we can see it, we can recognize, anger, frustration, fear, sadness, confusion. What is happening here? WTF, all of the things that come with, meeting real difficulty. Being able to tap into a resource so that we don't become the anger or the sadness or the confusion or the overwhelm is the key to, mindfulness work in my mind. That's what it's for. So that what we're up to is not how do we change the conditions outside, but how do we meet them, right? And in order to meet them, it would be, what is the word, like sadistic, right? For us to, or it would, for us to meet things with just in pain, right? So we're not inviting people like just go and meet the pain, but rather tap into a resource, into the resource of your own inner resources, so that your field can include the pain, but you don't become the pain. We're not trying to have people, just cause themselves more harm and more pain and say, just go be with the difficulty, right? There's a lot of like, go be with it, but be with it from a resourced place that allows you to include it as part of what is unfolding in reality. Oh, and then one of the ways that I do that is I added into, our centering meditation, the very last thing we do is we smile at it. We literally lift the corners of our mouth. We focus on like what it is that we're meeting with difficulty, and we lift the corners of our mouth, which actually sets off all, I ended up doing research on it as a result. It sets off all sorts of chemical responses, even if the smile is not, quote unquote, real. There's a well-known Tibetan teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who's passed, but he used to say, fake it till you make it. And so the smiling at it is not inviting us to like it or love it. It is saying that we're making a choice to actually meet it exactly where it is.
It's such an incredible skill that you're describing. And you talked about how we do it in the practice. So maybe let's do some practice. And then, folks, if you have questions about turning into the discomfort, meeting the discomfort, and smiling at it, send them in, and we'll talk to Reverend Angel on the backside about that. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay,
so the for the purposes of actually being able to recognize the value of the practice, what I'm going to invite people to do is, and I'm going to give you a way to think about this. I'm going to invite you to choose something that you're experiencing, a thought, an experience you may have had that invokes discomfort, that brings up discomfort for you. Maybe it's the experience that's happening in the world right now in our country. Maybe you're in a city where there have been protests or violence is happening and you're feeling very uncomfortable. Maybe you've had someone in your life that you have lost, and this experience is bringing that back up for you. But for the purposes of this, we don't want to put people over the edge. So I'm going to tell you to choose something that's about a 4 or a 5. So don't go over the edge, right? So something about a 4 or 5 that we can come back from. And just as you allow yourself to come into a sense of an awareness of your body, and always an invitation to first feel your feet, because that just brings us right back down literally to the ground, to remember ourselves as present, as flesh, bone, and blood, as fragile human beings that are also, very much connected and a part of the earth. So we feel our feet as a way to bring ourselves into immediate sense of presence, and we start to maybe spiral out a little bit. And feel the weight of your own body as it begins to settle, because as we become aware of our body, and we let our attention drop inward, you start to feel the weight of your body, and you can let that actually settle rather than resisting the weight of your body settling in. And generally, we want to have our crown towards the sky so that we have energy moving freely, our breath moving freely through our lungs, able to feed all of our cells. And in this moment, just invoke an experience, a thought, something that has happened that invites a little bit of discomfort for you. And again, just in the range of maybe 4 to 5. And as you notice that experience of discomfort, just notice where it shows up, particularly in your body. It's different for us. For some of us, it's in the shoulders, some of us in the back or the pit of our stomach. Maybe you breathe a little faster, or tightened up your hips. So just notice where it is that discomfort habitually locates itself in your body. So the discomfort is actually not just the mind, but in the body. So notice where that discomfort rests in the body. So what I'm going to invite you to do is actually bring the awareness of that discomfort so that you can see it as if it were sitting right in front of you, but your eyes are soft, relaxed. Bring that discomfort, though, as if you can see it in front of you. All of the direct things that make you really remember it. I also want you to now simultaneously just bring your attention into your belly and remember what is important to you. Remember what brings you joy. Remember what makes our lives worth really living. And you can now invite that experience of discomfort. So as you hold in your belly this experience of the things that give you joy, the remembrance of what gives you joy, what makes life really worth living, not material objects, but not things that come and go, but really what makes life worth fully living and showing up for. And invite that experience of discomfort to sit side by side with what it is that matters to you. And as you invite it to sit side by side, you're literally making friends with that which gives you joy and that which brings you discomfort, and creating a spaciousness through the breath. So allowing the breath to fill the belly, connecting to what it is that matters to you, and then kind of turning around and smiling at that which brings you discomfort. And you can do that by also lifting the corners of your mouth as you keep your mind's eye on what it is that brings you discomfort. So we're resourcing from what brings us joy, what makes our lives worth living, and we're inviting discomfort in. We're inviting discomfort in so that it's integrated as part of our experience rather than turned away from. And we smile at it. So we lift the corners of our mouth and notice the quality of intensity of that which brings us discomfort if it's changing for you. I can't get your direct feedback, but you can just notice that for yourself. So has that 4 or 5 changed in its intensity for you? As you hold it and integrate the experience of discomfort. Perhaps you may, as I have, found relief by meeting the discomfort and allowing it to be integrated, rather than the contraction and the pain of avoiding that comes from avoiding and moving away from it. Take a breath in, breathing in, tapping into the resource of what matters to you. And on an out breath, Just breathing more space between you and that which brings you discomfort as you lift the corners of your mouth again. Breathing in, tapping into your resource. Breathing out, creating more space around that discomfort as you smile at it again. And then a last time, breathing in, tapping into the resource, knowing that you are a resource, your feet are on the earth. There are people that love you. There are people that you love. They're your resource. There are so many amazing things that make life worth living, even in the face of, and especially in times of difficulty. And then breathing out, leaving more space around the discomfort, giving it space, holding it, and smiling at it. And that's it for the practice. You can note for yourself the quality. Just take a moment and you can maybe share that back in the chat and just notice what that was like for you. It's really important for us to, when we do these active practices, and not just a breath practice, but active practices where we're engaging something, to reflect on what that was like, so you can kind of tweak it, maybe different words for you that will help you to make it really work for you. That's what for us mindfulness 3.0 is about, is that we're not just practicing mindfulness, not just for stress reduction. Stress reduction is really important, but we're also not practicing it so that we can become, high priests in a temple. We're practicing it so we can meet the conditions of our lives. And right now, pandemic, death, discomfort, despair, these are the conditions that we are meeting right now. And so we want to meet them and integrate them. And our mindfulness practices should be able to deeply resource us and build our resilience and capacity to meet exactly what is showing up for us.
Thank you, Reverend Angel. Appreciate that. So we got some questions coming in. The first one is from my friend Dolly Chugg, who is an NYU professor. She's been on our podcast. She's written really a great book about bias.
Mm-hmm.
And so I recommend people go find that podcast and learn more about Dolly. She asks, can you say more about how you hold space for others?
Yeah, sure. So I want to say that we call it practice for a reason, right? Because I live in a society in which I have been an other, and I inhabit the body, a body that has been othered in so many different ways. And so my entry into my own meditation practice, at large, was really about trying to navigate what it means to be perceived and related to as an other. And the response to that is to other people, right? And so my response, having been, under the boot of, being treated in particular ways because I'm Black, or because I'm queer, or because I'm female, depending on the spaces that I'm in. I ran a lot of spaces where there were, male gendered folks, has been to be othered. And so I had that period of time where my response was like, make jokes about people, talk about them in different ways, make jokes about other people, because they were, lower on the rung. And so we could find jokes and make jokes about Chinese people, or Mexicans, or anyone else, to get the attention off of us. So my practice has been to really touch into the deep pain of my own experience as being related to as another, to actually find those places in myself and integrate that pain. And so that I am able to acknowledge that, not only that has been painful for me to be treated as an other, that actually it is painful for me to create that kind of contraction and distance that makes me other people. And so when I could see myself othering people, what I recognize is that there was a pain that existed in there for me. And I promise that it is the nature of how we are structured as human beings, that anytime that you are othering someone else, that there is contraction. In Buddhism, we would call it dukkha. And the word that I use to express it is contraction. In the modern times, is anything we can recognize as, there's either opening into life or there's closing, right? There's either dilation or there's retraction. And so anything that makes us retract is actually retracting, or I want to say, allowing our humanity to recede. So that dukkha, that suffering, it gets translated as suffering, but that gets really weird for us. Anything that causes us to contract. And so if we're othering someone, there's contraction in us. So I work with the contraction in myself rather than trying to convince myself something about the other person. Maybe they're not that bad, or, whatever. But like, what is that about for me? And that's real inner work. Yeah, thank you for asking. And let me just say really quickly, I also want to say that you want to invoke forgiveness and have a practice of forgiveness, because the fact is that our bias is not built in from the womb. Bias is a cultural phenomenon. And so the fact that we have bias and that we other people is a result of the systems and societies and cultures and communities and families that we live in. So we have to have some kindness for ourselves for the fact that it exists. And for most of us, it does, in fact, exist. You can go take the implicit bias test on Harvard's website. And by far, most of us have some kind of bias. And so we don't need to have shame about it, but rather to begin to do the work to unpack it in ourselves.
And just to say, Dolly's book, you should read Radical Dharma, but if you also want a book to read right now that would be useful, Dolly Chugg's book is called The Person You Mean to Be: How Good People Fight Bias. And then we have one last question. It's a big one, though. A lot of people are, this is a question from Nancy, but there's been a lot of talk about this in the message boards. Can you say more? Sorry, this is the question. Nancy writes, sorry for the sad thought. Mm-hmm. What if you can't think of anything that makes life worth living?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. I think that when we're in a place in which it's hard for us to find something that makes life worth living, it's because overwhelm has gotten its grip on us, right? And so as I was speaking about, it's kind of like we've become the emotion, right? And so that's crowding out our ability to tap into the resource of our memories. And so it would be important, if you have actual objects in your own home of things that give you joy, you can start with really simple things. I just got a matcha cup, and I love that matcha cup. It got sent to me from Japan, and it's sort of like the very simple things. It doesn't have to be like, things that give me, make life worth living, that are, big and expansive and make me want to go out and save the world, but they invite small joys, right? They invite small and yet meaningful, touchable joys. So there are, just walk around your home. And I'm assuming that if you're on a podcast and you're typing in a computer, that you have a home. So go ahead and make yourself around your home. Look at the objects, photographs of times of relationships with people, even if they're not alive anymore, that bring you like little bits of joy. And so it occurred to me, surprisingly, after we were on this time here together, Dan, that I was like, oh, right, 10% happier. We don't have to go for the big shebang. And we get lost in I have to find the really, the holy grail of happiness. And really, we can just find a little bit more comfort, a little bit more ease. In your case, Nancy, a little bit more of what it is that makes life living. Just one small thing. You don't have to chew it, a big bite off that's going to, make everything better. And really, that's not what the practice is about. It's creating a little bit more space. So I hope that you can find something that you can touch, like an object helps, right? Or a memory, something visual, so that you don't have to just go into thinking, because the thinking can put us into overwhelm. If we're in overwhelm, thinking is very difficult. So go find something that is an object that you can touch, that you can relate to with other senses, eyes, ears, taste. Go eat some ice cream or something like that.
Nancy, thank you for the very brave question. And Reverend Angel, thank you for coming on and giving us teachings at a tough moment in our history. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. And I hope that everyone, just whatever kind of feelings you are having right now, the most important thing is that you give yourself room for the complexity of those feelings. It's trying to trap yourself in the binary of I should feel positive about this or negative about this. That will actually cause more harm and more suffering to yourself. And we want people to be well. We want people to be able to meet this moment with grace and their resources. And, I want you to smile at it.
Thank you again. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I do have an announcement I want to make, which is about this show, TPH Live. As you may know, we started this at the beginning of the pandemic, or right around the beginning of the pandemic as it was rolling through the United States. And the goal, it was really an experiment. The goal was to see if we could help people out at a tough time. We are here in the United States, as everybody knows who lives here, starting to move into a reopening. Even here in New York City, where I live, next week there's going to be a reopening. Of course, people are going to be home more than we used to be, but we're starting to venture tentatively and hopefully successfully back out into the world. As a consequence, we're going to begin to sunset this experiment here at TPH Live. We're going to run it for a few more days, but Friday will be the last day. Now, I'm aware, we are all aware at TPH, at 10% Happier, that many of you have really come to rely on this. So we're going to start to roll out some resources to help you during this time, especially since now on top of the pandemic, we've got these protests and so much fear and anger rolling through the country in the wake of the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. And of course, the pandemic has disproportionately impacted communities of color. All of that sort of re-triggering 401 years of trauma. So there's a lot going on, and we want to be sensitive to that and to give you, to the best of our ability, some resources. So those include, as it pertains specifically to issues having to do with race, on the podcast, we've released 2 podcasts this week on this issue. We have more coming on Friday and on Monday and beyond. On the app, we are doing talks and single guided meditations specifically to meet this particular moment. They will be available for free. Speaking of the app, if you are not a subscriber right now, but you have been a regular on TPH Live and you're looking for some support as we move forward here, we're going to be giving away on Friday. We'll give out a code for 3 months free access. Speaking of live events, while we are winding down TPH Live, we are going to continue working on booting up a live product that will live in the app going forward. We don't have a date on that per se, but that is coming. And then finally, another resource is, as I've mentioned before, we're going to be running a meditation challenge. So a lot coming your way. I apologize for those who are going to be upset about the fact that we are winding down TPH Live. It's been a big, grand experiment on our end. It's been incredibly gratifying, but also takes up a lot of energy, and we want to be very strategic about how we're spending that energy at a time like this. So questions welcome. Send them our way. We can talk about it tomorrow and on Friday. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you again, Reverend Angel. Always a pleasure to see you. And in the meantime, everybody, please stay healthy and stay safe. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.